Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I want to talk to you a little about the Mahindra 2638 HST Cab. If you're considering purchasing one, either new or used, I'm going to give you some pretty long-term stuff that I've learned about this tractor over time and my personal experiences and some things I changed almost immediately when I bought it. So a little backstory. This is a 2021 purchased during COVID. This is when things were going crazy. No dealers had them in stock, and I was insistent on purchasing this particular tractor. I came from a John Deere 3032E, a 2010 model. It was a 32 horse, 3-cylinder Yanmar diesel, and for what we were using, we have 20 acres out here, a little bit of digging with the bucket, not a lot, it's not a bulldozer, a lot of mowing, a lot of spraying, soil conditioner, box blade, driveway, there's all kinds of stuff that it gets used for. And so that particular tractor, it had about 1,600 hours on it when we sold it in 2021 when we got this. Well, this one has had a lot more use than that, just because it's been kind of the primary tractor that we've used because it's got an air-conditioned cab. I'll get to that in a moment. This tractor, as it sits now here, this is June of 2025, it has almost 1,500 hours on it. I think it's like 1490 something. And in that, I've had a few issues arise, none of which are super major. But so for starters, the tractor comes with a 7-year, 3,000 hour powertrain warranty, emphasis on powertrain. It's not a bumper to bumper. I think the bumper to bumper is like a year, and maybe 1,000 hours. I don't remember what the original one was, but so the issues that I've had along the way, first and foremost, when it had 5 hours on it, the air conditioning quit working. All that was there's a Schrader valve where you charge and vacuum down the AC. The Schrader valve was bad, so it bled off the Freon. And so I have all the equipment to do that. I didn't feel like dragging it over to the dealer just for that. So I spent a couple bucks, vacuumed it down, recharged it, put a new Schrader valve on it, and it's been good to go. Speaking of the air conditioning, one of the things that I have as a complaint is the air conditioning, and there's a couple reasons why. For starters, these tractors do not have any insulation in the roof. So if you have a hot day, you're just gonna bake, and it has no window tint, obviously. And so I have thermometers in the cab, and I was watching the temperature. So if I start out this is a heated and cooled shop here, I start out in 70 degrees Fahrenheit here in my shop, that means it's 70 degrees in the cab. So as long as it's recirculating the air, it's gonna try to keep drawing down that temperature. If I'm out using it when it's 100 degrees out, which is about 38 Fahrenheit for everybody else, when it's 100 degrees out, it just cannot keep up. You just start feeling like you're in that fish bowl, you start sweating, it's super hot in there. And when I was watching the temperature, it would initially draw it down to about 65 degrees, and then you could just watch it start to creep up, and it would get 85, almost 90 degrees in the cab. I mean, it could not keep up with that heat. And on top of that, another issue, so there's coolant lines that run, I'll have to show you here. There's coolant lines that run in this frame up to the top. And this piece here on the inside gets very hot. So the air conditioning is also competing against heating this metal up and radiant heat, everything else, whatever you want to call it, in the cab. Another reason it gets really hot. So I had enough of that early on, and I took it to a window tint shop, and I paid almost $1,000 to get ceramic window tint. It's XPEL window tint. Really good stuff, but it's fantastic. So you can hold your hand to the back of the tent when it's 100 degrees out, sun shining on it, and it's not hot at all. It's fantastic. That made a huge difference. The third thing that you have to pay attention to is the air conditioning head pressures. That basically the issue is the condenser is too small and or doesn't have enough airflow across it. Even when you're at full throttle, whatever, it's not drawing enough air across the condenser to properly expel the heat. So the pressures get too high on the air conditioning system and it starts short cycling because it's too high, so it's trying not to blow itself up, basically. Once you address that, which I did that by, you can find a motorcycle fan, electric motorcycle fan. It's very thin and you can put it right in front of the condenser so it moves more air. The mechanical fan just doesn't move enough with the radiator, everything else in the way. I think that's a point for a design improvement, either a larger condenser or a better flowing mechanical fan. So anyway, that's enough about the air conditioning. Another issue I had was the fuel level sender, which is, it sits right on the back side of the cab. So you'd fill it up and it would show it has half a tank. Well, the original issue there was at the very top of it, there's this metal piece that grounds out against a bracket on the top, and it sends the wrong signal to the ECU or whatever to tell you the fuel level. I didn't know that at first, so I went and just replaced the part. The part's about $90 and it takes 10 minutes to replace. It's not difficult to replace. But I only knew that became an issue because it happened again. And so you get on the forums and people talk about, oh yeah, I've had that problem. Well, that's what it was. There's a bracket. So all you have to do is you put a piece of rubber between this top bracket and the fuel level sender, your problem goes away. I guess my only other issues I've had, I had a front wheel seal, the axle seal where it pivots. I had that start leaking, and that was covered under powertrain warranty, or you can fix it yourself for about 20 bucks and an hour of your time. You own tractors, you have a farm, you learn how to fix stuff. So, downtime is money, so you don't want to deal with that. The dealer will go fix it for you for free, but you got to drag it to the dealer, and it's more of a hassle than anything. So minor inconvenience. And then the other thing that I had happen was the gauge cluster quit working at 996 hours. So not quite 1,000 hours. And so that I did have to take it to the dealer to have them fix it and replace it. Unfortunately, when they replace it, it goes back to 0 hours because the hours are stored in the meter, not in the ECU. It now shows I have like 400 something hours on this tractor, even though you basically have to add almost 1,000 hours to it. That's a little unfortunate, but I'm an honest guy, so even when it comes time to sell it, I'm obviously going to disclose that. Here it is, I'm putting it out on YouTube anyway. So other things that I've changed when I first got this is I noticed that if you look in the engine bay, a lot of the air conditioning hoses, the coolant hoses, they have zero protection. They run through, not even a grommet, they just run through like a metal hole in a firewall or whatever. And I know that it's gonna vibrate over time and eventually rub holes in those. So what I had to do is I had to go and buy a bunch of wiring loom and basically cover the AC stuff, cover the coolant, the radiator hoses, anything that I saw that was going to be a potential issue down the road. And I'm glad I have, because I haven't had any issues, but I've had to replace the wiring loom because it's rubbed through the wiring loom. So not a big fan of how they went about that. And you can tell in that regard, it was just kind of thrown together on an assembly line, and then now it's not my problem. Once it's after that 1 year bumper to bumper warranty, then it's our problem. So we definitely have to make sure that you have to watch out for stuff like that. Other things that I can think of, the hydraulics for a while, especially the bucket, it was getting really slow, and I didn't realize that when you do the hydraulic service and everything else, there's an actual suction filter at the bottom, not just the regular hydraulic filter, but there is a mesh, like a long mesh filter that's underneath where the suction hose is, and so you can pull that out, and there's some trash and stuff that gets in there from the original machining that I didn't know. So when I changed that the first time, that sped the hydraulics up significantly. Another complaint, and I feel like this video, I don't want it to feel like I'm just dogging on this tractor because I love it. It's fantastic. I just want to share with you my experiences and the shortcomings that I've realized. So another thing is the hydraulics on this. I forget what they're rated for. I'll put it in the right in front of you here on the screen, but it definitely does not feel as strong as what it's rated for. So if you need to pick up like a big bale of hay or big round bale, it struggles to do that, and it really shouldn't, because you know those bales, depending on the moisture content, 1,200, 1,600 pounds, and it feels like it struggles to do it. And whereas the John Deere, the 3032 that we had before, it could do it no problem. And the issue I had on that John Deere was the hydraulics like to leak off, and so if you were holding a big bale of hay for a long time, it would start bouncing around because the hydraulics just couldn't maintain the pressure. But anyway, minor inconvenience, but you know, I use this primarily again for mowing, spraying, things like that. It does do a little bit of digging, but I don't use it like a bulldozer. And that's another thing that you'll see. You get on the forums and the pages, and people complain about, you know, oh, I bent the bucket, or I bent the brackets for the bucket, or I bent the hydraulic rams because I was putting too much pressure on it. They're trying to treat these things like bulldozers, and they're not. That is not the intention of these tractors. So as long as you use them as they're intended, they'll do great for you. And I'll show you here on your screen. Another thing that you may want to get additional protection is this grill on the front, this guard that comes with it. It offers almost no radiator protection. So if you're picking up some branches or something like that, it'll go right through the radiator. And I've seen several of those on forums and whatnot that becomes an issue. Well, there's a guy, his name is Adam Matlock, and he's in a lot of the forums and groups. He makes these guards, and they're pretty thick steel, and he also makes a hydraulic guard for the side as well, both of which I would highly recommend getting. They're not inexpensive. The grill is, I think, $150. The guard over there is almost $300. Very thick steel. Cheap insurance is the way I see it. The biggest thing to stay after with these tractors is the maintenance. There are a bunch of filters, there's a bunch of fluids. Keep them changed at the intervals specified in the manual, and it will give you many hours of reliable service. Haven't had any oil leaks other than the axle seal that I talked about there. As far as modifications that I've done, I added, you can see there on the top, I've added LED lights to replace the original halogens that were on there. They're just not very bright. Doing anything late at night, now that I have the super dark tint, makes it even more difficult, so brighter lights help. Probably want to do like a light bar or something if I'm going to keep it a whole lot longer. I don't do a whole lot of work at night anyway, so I don't need the exceptional lighting. I'll go with some common issues that I haven't had on mine, but the front loader, where the brackets attach, these screws, these bolts will back out and shear off, and then you're in for a pretty difficult day. I have not had that issue. Another issue that people seem to have is issues with the four-wheel drive and the low, medium, high range transmission, either struggling to get it in or out of gear. I haven't had that issue either. You know, I'm nitpicking here, but the hydro transmission, you know, has a forward and a backward pedal. Sometimes it'll just slowly creep. If you're sitting there trying to hold it, it'll creep. It's like it doesn't center perfectly, and there's a really expensive strut underneath the tractor that's supposed to return that, and I'm not going to replace it because it's like $300 or $400, and it's basically like a little hydraulic cylinder that returns it to neutral, and I'm not going to do that. One more thing on the nitpicking is the pins to the loader. They vibrate like no other. And so the answer is either get some zip ties or some rubber bands to keep them from moving, because they just vibrate, and it will get on your last nerve, because you can hear it inside the tractor, you can hear it inside the cab. So that's what I've done, is zip tie them so they don't move around. This one I need to add another zip tie. You can hear it. So one of the other big things that I've done on this tractor, and it was a pretty expensive mod, about $2,000, is I added a Grammer suspension seat. And the original seat only has like 2 inches, maybe 3 inches of travel, and this one now has almost a foot of travel. You have to adjust it accordingly, otherwise you sit too high, so you still lose a little bit of that suspension in this tractor, but night and day difference, especially if you're going to spend a lot of time in this tractor. Stereo that comes with it is a Kenwood Bluetooth unit, works very well. I can talk on the phone with my wife in it as long as I'm, idle or lower speed. If I have it full throttle, she's not going to hear me. The speakers in it has 2 4-inch speakers in the roof. I did upgrade those with some better units, put some JBLs with some cups behind them, and so I can get a little bit better sound without having to upgrade anything else. And that was a pretty inexpensive upgrade, like $60, $70, and have better sound. Alternative to that is you put on your noise canceling headphones and you're all happy, good to go. I mean, that's really it. It's been overall a very good, very reliable tractor for me. I think at the 38 horsepower level, for what I'm asking it to do, run a 6-foot finish mower, run a 6-foot bush hog, a 100-gallon sprayer, a 55-gallon sprayer, a soil conditioner, Harley rake. That's probably the most demanding for it. It does everything very well. The Harley rake, it's just barely enough power. I believe it's rated at 27 or 28 PTO horsepower, which for a 6-foot soil conditioner probably need closer to 40 or 45 horsepower, so I mean like a 60 horse tractor or something like that, but that's a topic for another conversation. But anyway, yeah, so it really is a great tractor. The whole reason I decided to go with Mahindra is my neighbor that lives to the north of me here, he's had one since the 90s, and it's the Mitsubishi unit, and it's been a fantastic tractor for him. He let me use it for a while, and I was more than impressed. So that's what decided to get me to come over here. Despite this tractor is built by TYM, which is in South Korea. They build a lot of other brands tractors at that facility, just with different powertrains. So you're talking about Branson LS, Bad Boy, those type of tractors are very similar to this. And you actually look at the parts up close on the cabs, the mirrors, everything. It actually says TYM on them. It doesn't say Mahindra. What's specific to Mahindra for this tractor is the powertrain. That's it. Everything else is just generic TYM that all the other tractors have. They all use the same AC compressor. They all use the same alternator. It's things like that it makes it easier to find parts, because that is another complaint that some people have, is the weight on parts. And I think a lot of that was primarily in the COVID days, where you needed something simple like a gas cap. You left it on the back when you're filling it up, drove off, and it got lost. But a gas cap, which they're weird threads, it's not universal. So then you have to order it from Mahindra. They want $90 for it, and then you have to wait 3 months or something ridiculous like that. And so that's just things like that, where you hope you don't have to have a lot of downtime. The things I keep on hand for this tractor are primarily maintenance items: filters, O-rings for the oil drain pan. There's 2 of them. And I keep an extra fuel cap because I've lost one. That was my example that I used earlier. They're not cheap either. If you're considering buying one, I would also look at your dealer network, because I'm here in East Texas. I bought this in Alexandria, Louisiana, which is about 3.5 hours away. I do have one Mahindra dealer that's about 50 miles from me, and I cannot stand them, so I was not going to give them my money. That's basically all there is to it. And the attitude that some of these salesmen have, it will turn you off and cost you a sale. When you're buying a $30,000+ tractor, you've lost the sale. And I will never have it serviced there. There's another dealer that's about an hour and a half from me in Kearns, Texas, and that's where I go instead. I drive an hour and a half for maintenance, any maintenance I can't do myself, or warranty work, etc. I will drive gladly an hour and a half to this other dealer instead of 50 miles for my closest dealer. you know, that's one thing that's kind of a downside to owning these, is you don't have a John Deere dealer or a Kubota dealer right down the street, which I do. There's two John Deere dealers within 15-minute drive of me, and two Kubota dealers. So having that John Deere before, that was great, because they'd even come out to you for no extra charge in some instances while it was under warranty, to fix things, which you're not going to get that with this. So that's other things you have to consider. But yeah, it's really, overall, it's a great tractor. If I had to buy it again, knowing what I know now, I think I would still buy it again. The other thing that really attracted me to it was the lack of the DPF, DEF, the no emission stuff. It still has an after treatment, but there's no filters or fluids or anything like that. So it doesn't, the exhaust smells a little bit different. It doesn't smell diesel-y like you would typically expect. Kind of has a urea type of smell to it, but it doesn't have any of that. And I haven't had any issues, haven't had any check engine lights. It's never overheated on me. I am on top of it with maintenance. If I'm out, you know, mowing a field and it's dusty or something like that, I will make sure when I'm done using it to blow out the radiator, the condenser, and of course all the filters, the cab filters. I'm very, very cautious when it comes to that, because I don't want to have one of those big expenses if, you know, you have to take the roof off to replace some components up there or something like that. So anyway, I thought this would be a good video. Hopefully it helped somebody out. And thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.
One's on them. If you're a